feel like it's time for us to have a deeper talk than normal. Normally at the beginning of every season, there's a part where I scream at everybody, if you don't think you got a #1 car, you shouldn't be here.
Big Chief built Street Outlaws from the ground up and then watched people inside it try to tear it apart. He ran the races, set the rules, and kept the 405 together for years. But behind the cameras, 5 people pushed him past his limit. Some cheated. Some betrayed him. One almost ended everything. Who made the list? And what exactly did they do to get there?
Damn! Come on, baby, come on! Yeah, baby. Stand by. Woo-hoo-hoo! That's right, yeah. Stand by.
Stand up, Chicago. Stand up, Chicago.
Join us as we find out the 5 names of the members of Street Outlaws he hated the most. Number 5. Richard Rawlings. Richard Rawlings wasn't part of the 405 scene. He ran Gas Monkey Garage out of Dallas, hosted Fast and Loud on Discovery, and made his name buying and flipping classic cars. By the mid-2020s, he had branched out into restaurants, tequila, merchandise, and even music venues across Texas. He wasn't a street racer, just a businessman who happened to work with cars. Richard had built the Gas Monkey brand into something much larger than a shop. In 2007, he broke the 1979 Cannonball Run record, driving from New York to Los Angeles in 31 hours and 59 minutes. Fast and Loud ran for 8 seasons between 2012 and 2020, producing spin-offs including Garage Rehab and Misfit Garage. By the time the mega race was organized, Gas Monkey had over 20 million social media followers. Richard was not unknown. He was a fully established television brand going up against a street racing crew, and that gap in culture is what made the collision inevitable. The agreement for the event was simple. Both teams were to build brand new cars from scratch. No advantages carried over from existing builds. 2 teams, 2 cars, 1 race. For the Street Outlaws crew, the race put everything on the line, not just a result, but the reputation of the Oklahoma City scene they had spent years building. Trouble started during the build phase. As both teams worked on their cars, Rawlings brought in Alex Laughlin to drive the Gas Monkey car on race day. Laughlin wasn't just some weekend hobbyist. He had professional NHRA credentials and years of experience in sanctioned drag racing. The moment the Street Outlaws crew learned about it, they pushed back. The challenge had been framed as a crew versus crew race, shops and drivers on both sides, no outside help. Bringing in a professional driver changed that dynamic completely. Big Chief made his position clear. From his perspective, hiring outside talent wasn't part of the spirit of the challenge. The agreement was simple. Each team would build their own car and race their own driver. Having Laughlin behind the wheel turned it into something else, more like a production decision than a pure competition. The race went ahead anyway. Laughlin drove for Gas Monkey, and Big Chief drove for Street Outlaws. When the cars crossed the line, Street Outlaws won. The victory was real and clean, but it didn't settle the underlying tension. Big Chief criticized how Richard had handled the agreement, noting that the rules had been shifted without his team's consent. The 405 list had no written rule book. It operated on mutual understanding. Racers called each other out, agreed on terms, and showed up. When someone changed those terms without agreement, it violated the only rule book the 405 had ever used: the word of the people involved. Big Chief and Richard didn't have a history before this event. What they had was one high-profile race where one side felt the agreement had been rewritten, and even a win didn't erase that. Big Chief walked away with the victory, but also with a clear impression of Rawlings' approach. He challenged the race setup. But the next man challenged Big Chief's entire right to run things, so what happened? Number 4. James Reaper Goad. James Goad, better known in the Street Outlaws world as Reaper, didn't come in quietly. From the moment he started showing up regularly on the show, he made it clear he had opinions, and he wasn't afraid to share them. He was not part of the original 405 crew, and had not earned his place on the list the way the established racers had. That mattered because the 405 list operated on rules that everyone was expected to respect. Big Chief ran that system. He organized the list, managed callouts, set the conditions for races, and acted as the final authority on how things operated. That structure existed long before the show even aired. Reaper stepped into that environment and immediately questioned it. He spoke openly about what he saw as unfair advantages for certain top racers, suggesting that decisions sometimes protected specific people's positions rather than following the agreed rules. And he wasn't subtle. These criticisms happened on camera, in front of the crew, during race nights. They were public challenges, not private comments. The response from the 405 side, particularly Big Chief, produced some of the most visible on-camera confrontations the show had seen during that period. The arguments weren't physical, but they were direct and heated. Reaper challenged call-out orders, race conditions, and management of the list itself. Big Chief defended the system and made it clear that it wasn't open to negotiation by someone new. Other racers had raised concerns before. Names like Ryan Martin and Chuck Seitzinger questioned aspects of how the top positions were protected, but no one did it as persistently or confrontationally as Reaper. Across multiple seasons, he maintained his position, repeating his criticisms in different contexts and refusing to soften his stance. The conflict extended beyond what viewers saw on camera. Reaper posted videos and statements online, questioning how decisions were made within the group and pointing out what he considered deeper problems in the Street Outlaws environment. Those posts reached the fan community, keeping the tension alive even when cameras weren't rolling. Eventually, the situation became unsustainable. Reaper stopped appearing regularly on the series. Disagreements with production and ongoing friction with members of the racing group, including Big Chief, contributed to his departure. He moved toward independent racing projects and his own content, distancing himself from the franchise he had once been part of. His exit closed one of the most consistently combative storylines the show had produced. Reaper's signature car, the Reaper SS, a heavily modified Chevrolet Camaro, had become one of the show's most recognized builds during his time on the series. It was known for its turbocharging setup, aggressive weight reduction, and the kind of power numbers that made it genuinely competitive against the top 405 racers. Beyond the on-camera drama, Reaper maintained an active presence in regional drag events after leaving the show, continuing to race and build cars independently. His departure did not end his career. It redirected it away from the franchise and toward a circuit he controlled himself. Reaper fought the system openly, but the next man attacked Big Chief's record silently, one win at a time. So what happened? Number 3. Kai Kelly. Kai Kelly came from Magnolia, Mississippi, and for years he had been building and racing on the streets in the South. He had a reputation locally, but it wasn't one that had yet reached the national spotlight that Street Outlaws offered. When Kai Kelly entered the show's orbit around 2014, he wasn't part of the 405 circle, hadn't raced with the Oklahoma City crew, and didn't come with the kind of backstory that most top-level list racers had. His car, a Chevy Camaro called the Shocker, was built specifically for the quarter mile. It wasn't built to be flashy for cameras, but to be effective. When he started matching up against established 405 names, he didn't take a soft approach. He lined up against the top competitors and consistently walked away with wins that the crew could not ignore. One event in particular marked his arrival as something the Oklahoma City racers had to take seriously. In 2015, at a Cash Days event in Texas, Kai Kelly lined up against some of the strongest competitors in the country, including Big Chief himself. Cash Days wasn't a casual meet. It brought together top racers from multiple regions with significant cash on the line for anyone who could run clean through the field. Kai Kelly didn't just show up, he dominated. By the end of the event, he walked away with roughly $16,000, and word of his performance spread quickly through the racing community. Big Chief was among the racers who could not match Kai Kelly that night. Losing a high-profile open event to an outsider in front of competitors and cameras hit directly at the identity of the 405 crew. Their reputation had been built on being the fastest street racers in the country, and someone from Mississippi had just challenged that directly. Kai Kelly had been introduced to a national audience through Street Outlaws, New Orleans in 2016, the spin-off that brought the Louisiana racing scene into the franchise. His no-nonsense approach and the consistent performance of the Shocker made him one of the spin-off's breakout figures. Outside of television, Kai Kelly operated a performance shop specializing in custom street and drag builds. He was also in a long-term relationship with fellow drag racer Lizzie Moosey, whose own career in no-prep racing ran parallel to his. Moosey passed away in 2024, and Kai Kelly publicly acknowledged her as central to both his personal life and his time in the racing community. Kai Kelly didn't stop there. Over the next several years, he repeatedly matched up against Big Chief in races connected to the show, and he consistently came out ahead. According to conversations tied to the racing scene, Kai Kelly himself confirmed multiple wins over Big Chief, and noted that during that period, he often had the quicker car. He presented it as a fact the results supported, not as drama, which made it harder for anyone to argue. The 405 crew's response was practical. Kai Kelly's wins forced changes, more aggressive car builds, sharper preparation, and strategic adjustments. Over time, their matchups became some of the most watched and anticipated, with significant purses and a clear audience expectation for head-to-head outcomes. Kai Kelly never questioned Big Chief's authority. He didn't post online complaints or challenge the 405 list. He simply showed up, raced, and won. Kai Kelly beat him on the track, and Big Chief adapted. But the next conflict ended with him walking off the show entirely. So what happened? Number 2. Precious Cooper. Precious Cooper built her reputation through the Memphis branch of Street Outlaws. She earned the nickname Queen of the Streets by consistently beating established racers in a scene that hadn't traditionally had women at the top. By the time America's List brought together multiple regional crews to compete nationally, Precious was already one of the most recognized names in the franchise. Fans respected her, and competitors knew her skill on the starting line. The conflict with Big Chief didn't start on the track. It started in a meeting room, over a rule. When production began on America's List, the show introduced a qualification system called Race Your Way In. It allowed some drivers to earn a spot through preliminary races rather than being placed strictly according to their existing regional rankings. The intent was to give every regional crew a route in. Precious had come up under the mentorship of J.J. Boss, the veteran Memphis racer who ran the crew she competed with on Street Outlaws. Memphis. She started racing at 19, initially driving a car called Puddle Jumper before building toward the top tier of the Memphis scene. Her success extended beyond television. She competed regularly in No Prep Kings and Outlaw Armageddon, events that drew the strongest names from across the entire franchise. By the time America's List began filming, she had defeated enough established racers that her place at the top level of street drag racing was not a question anyone in the community was still asking. She arrived at America's List not as someone trying to prove herself, that work was already done. She arrived as someone who expected to be treated accordingly. That expectation is exactly what the argument was about. Precious, As one of the Memphis racers, directly affected by how the new rules would be applied, became part of the friction early on. Accounts placed the confrontation during a driver's meeting before filming had even started. Reports describe it as heated, with Big Chief and his partner Jackie Brosh involved in the exchange. Neither Precious nor Shearer gave a detailed public account of what was said. The words exchanged weren't confirmed, and both sides have stayed mostly silent since. What is known is what happened next. Big Chief walked away from the production. Some sources place his departure as early as the first night on location. In his public statements, Shearer explained his decision as being about broader disagreements with the direction of the show, how rules were handled, the competition structure, and production choices. He did not directly blame Precious, and she did not elaborate publicly either. The result was that the argument, however minor or major it might have been, became inseparable from the narrative of his exit. Fans debated it for years, filling in gaps with speculation because neither side provided a complete account. What is confirmed is that the disagreement happened at a time when tensions over the show's rules were already high, and Big Chief's exit came immediately afterward. Precious kept racing, competing in major events, including No Prep Kings and Outlaw Armageddon, without publicly revisiting the confrontation. The situation was left unresolved, and the fan community kept debating it long after the season ended. The next name on this list was not a rival from another city or a production rule. It was someone Big Chief had shared a shop with for over a decade. Precious lit the fuse and Big Chief walked, but the name that cost him the most was someone he once called his closest partner. So what happened? Number 1. Shawn Murder Nova. Sean Ellington and Justin Shearer had a long history together before Street Outlaws ever hit television. Back in the mid-2000s, they co-owned Midwest Streetcars in Oklahoma City, worked side by side on the builds that would eventually become some of the most recognizable vehicles in the franchise, like the Crow and the original Murder Nova, and even hosted a joint podcast called The Chief and Shawn Show. By the time the show premiered in 2013, fans already saw them as the backbone of the 405 crew. The first serious crack in that partnership appeared during Season 3. Big Chief publicly accused Shawn of running nitrous oxide in a race that had been declared nitrous-free. This wasn't a private disagreement whispered in a shop. It happened in front of cameras, in the middle of the competitive structure of the show, and in front of the other racers. The tension resurfaced in Season 6 with a new accusation. This time, Big Chief claimed that Shawn had used a leave button, a device designed to help a driver launch at the exact moment the light changes, giving a measurable advantage off the line. Again, the claim was made publicly, in front of an audience that had followed these two men for years. Beyond the specific accusations, there was a slower, more gradual shift happening between them. Shawn's focus began to diverge. He was increasingly drawn toward the hands-on restoration of classic cars, a side of the automotive world that required different priorities and attention than the high-stakes drag racing that had defined Midwest street cars. Shearer remained focused on competitive racing. Shawn eventually launched his own shop, 187 Customs. The separation wasn't just in practice, it was visible online. Social media posts that used to carry the Midwest Streetcars branding started showing 187 Customs instead. Shawn and his manager, Phantom, built the new identity deliberately. Fans noticed the shift in branding before any official statement confirmed that the partnership had ended. Shawn's competitive record after the split backed up the direction he chose. In 2024, he secured both individual event wins and an overall championship in the No Prep Elite Series, one of the most competitive sanctioned outlaw drag racing circuits in the country. He later made the move into the NHRA Outlaw Street Series, which represented a bridge between the outlaw racing world he had built his career in and the more structured environment of traditional motorsports. His shop, 187 Customs, became the base for all of it, building and tuning high-performance vehicles while keeping him connected to the hands-on side of the sport that had drawn him in from the beginning. By around 2021, the split was complete. The two men stopped attending races together, their paths diverged, and the shop that had been a daily hub for collaboration was no longer shared. Shearer continued along the path he had maintained within the franchise. When asked later, Shearer clarified that there was no personal hatred between them. He described it as two people who still cared about each other but had grown in different directions. Shawn hasn't publicly contradicted that explanation. But the history between them, the public accusations in Season 3 and Season 6, the visible rebranding, and the eventual split, doesn't disappear just because they framed the ending amicably. Big Chief had won the mega race. He had outlasted Reaper. He had pushed back against rule changes that cost him a season. He had rebuilt every time Kai Kelly beat him. None of those things required him to lose someone he had worked beside for over a decade. That is what separated Shawn from every other name on this list. After everything that happened between Big Chief and Murder Nova, do you think their friendship was ever fully repaired? Of all 5 names on this list, which conflict do you think Big Chief handled the wrong way? Share your thoughts with us in the comments section. Remember to like, share, and subscribe for more. Also, click the next video showing on your screen. You will enjoy it.